So 2024 was such an up and down year for Airbnbs. Many thought the Airbnb bust of 2023 was real, and frankly, for some investors, this was actually true. We've really seen a maturing in the industry, and competition is heating up while housing prices are frankly still high. However, interest rates have ticked down just slightly. That's nice. But the question that's on everyone's mind now is not only where you should invest in 2025 that makes the most sense, but really where you should avoid. So in this video, I'm going to cover the top 10 short-term rental markets you should absolutely avoid investing in 2025. Let's hit it. So to start out, let me give a massive disclaimer because I know this video is going to stir the pot and frankly tick someone off. And that's not really the intent of it. It's to provide education and data, more specifically to help you invest wisely. I'm a big believer in not wasting your time and looking in the right places that can give me the highest probability of finding the best deals possible. You find the best deals possible too. Deals that cash flow, meaning they make money, not lose money or simply break even after expenses. Also keep in mind that markets change over time. If you're watching this at the end of 2025 or even in 2026 or somewhere in the future, the markets and the data that I'm going to be talking about have already changed for better or worse. So understand that markets can fluctuate and data can change, meaning a market could be bad today, but in the future, it could correct and improve. Second disclaimer, there are over 12,000 potential vacation rental markets in the United States, and we're only focused on large, popular markets that everyone's talking about. So technically, are these really the top 10 worst markets based purely on the 12,000 large and small markets across the entire United States? Probably not. We're really looking at the data points of just 500 large markets, not the full 12,000. So now that we've got that clear, final and third disclaimer, I am not attacking anyone in particular, and I mean no offense to anyone, especially realtors. They're typically the ones who get the most offended by any sort of data or analytics or information that I drop publicly about market performance. So please don't take offense. And if you're a realtor, I still love you. Please reach out to me, and I'm sure there are deals in your market. And so I will say this, I'm purely looking at data, but I'm also fully aware that you can find opportunities in even the most saturated markets out there. However, that doesn't mean someone new to investing in short-term rentals should invest in those saturated markets, especially if they expect to cash flow. Going back to the beginning, I'm a firm believer in not wasting your time and looking for markets that have the highest probability of the best deals that actually cash flow. I love cash flow. There are a ton of popular short-term rental markets where investors do what I call herding, meaning they follow the herd and they follow the gurus or the previous investors who were there first and have had big time success. And I'm not talking about, 8 years ago, maybe even 2 or 3 years ago. New investors are following these individuals into markets expecting the same success without looking at any data. And boy, are they shocked after their first year. However, prices change and revenue has dropped in a lot of these markets. And a lot of these big popular markets we're gonna take a look at, revenue has even dropped by 15, 20, even 30%. When you take a look at all the active listings and the average revenue is really dropped by a significant amount. So where you decide to plant your flag for success today is more important than ever. So with all that being said, let's finally dive into the top 10 markets you should avoid investing in 2025. And please don't stone me for number 1 or 4 on the list. Starting at number 10, Las Vegas, Nevada is our first market to avoid. The market has seen a supply increase of about 6%, while average revenue is relatively flat year over year. However, the city has passed very stringent regulations, making it extremely difficult to invest and find opportunities here. Primarily dominated by hotels and resorts, according to local law, you can't even short-term rent within 2,500 feet of a resort and 660 feet within another short-term rental. I mean, try thinking about how you're going to measure that out. Sure, there are maps out there and everything, but it's extremely difficult. And you can buy an STR in more friendlier parts of the surrounding towns. However, based on the data, the further you get from the strip in Vegas, the further the revenue drops. Therefore, making this market a market you should avoid investing in. Don't waste your time there. Coming in at number 9 is Destin, Florida. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I personally love visiting and staying in Destin, but that doesn't mean it's investable. The Destin market has almost doubled in appreciation value since pre-COVID years. However, revenue has slowly dipped by about 17% in the last 2 years. This is definitely a market to keep your eye on in the future, but right now the housing prices are just too high to justify declining revenue, hence why it made the list. At number 8, St. George, Utah. Known for several national parks within driving distance and fairly decent temperatures year-round, St. George is a very enticing market to invest in. However, with the average monthly revenue around $3,200 a month and the median monthly mortgage payments around $2,800 a month, you do the math there, there's very little room to run a profitable short-term rental business. So yeah, housing prices for STRs are too expensive here. Therefore, avoid that market. One of my biggest rules in short-term rental investing is not to invest in markets where they are building subdivisions and communities of new short-term rentals, and there are at least 2 to 3 major traffic drivers nearby. Broken Bow, Oklahoma misses on both of those metrics. Known as a COVID market, meaning it saw a massive growth of travel to the area during the pandemic, and then a recent setback in travel and in average revenue, this market is extremely competitive and difficult to break in with current housing prices. This market has seen an increase of supply of 40% year over year. That's 40% in 2024, not what we saw in 2023 and 2022. And they're still building more and more rental communities. I'd strongly recommend avoiding Broken Bow at this time. At number 6 is a city. Cities with little to no short-term rental regulation and low purchase price to entry are actually extremely risky to invest in. That's why I have Houston, Texas at number 6. Not only is the city planning to institute some sort of new regulation, there are over 7,000 active short-term rentals in the city limits, making this market like the Wild Wild West right before the sheriff comes to town and brings law and order. So I would recommend staying away from Houston, Texas, because frankly, with the number of short-term rentals, the new regulation coming, and the low revenue of the area, it doesn't make sense. Coming in at number 5 is more of a region than a particular town or city. I call this area Frisco, Colorado, or pretty much a ski town along I-70 in Colorado. Due to the strict regulations, lack of good inventory, and most importantly, cabin or condo prices being too high, it's extremely difficult to make anything cash flow in this region. The gravy train of buying cash flowing short-term rentals here ran out a few years ago. So if you're dead set on buying in Colorado, I recommend checking out other parts of the state. And number 4, although regulation has kept the supply relatively low in this market, increased housing prices and a yearly average decrease in occupancy by 5% has put South Lake Tahoe, California on my do not invest here list. Furthermore, as properties have seen a dip in revenue, especially in the last 2 years, competition has really increased in terms of design, decor, and amenities. In fact, Lake Tahoe hosts have a higher average star rating than most other vacation markets, which means the majority provide a quality stay. Although this is good for Airbnb and also guests, this means that hosts are having to further invest into their properties to stay ahead of the competition and actually compete. One bad review could be the difference between a profitable or meager winter. Due to the average decrease in occupancy across this market and the intense competition, I'd stay away from Lake Tahoe. Okay, speaking of competitive markets with design, decor, and amenities, Scottsdale, Arizona is one of the most competitive markets in the United States. At number 3, this market has not only seen a supply increase of over 45% in the last 2 years, but revenue has fallen by over 17% in the last year on average. This means that if you were to enter this market today, you wouldn't be able to expect the same income that properties made a year ago. I'd really try to avoid this market at all costs unless you're already investing there and experienced there. For number 2, when I think of the term saturated, I think of the market Blue Ridge, Georgia, with almost 100% increase in supply, 100% in just the last year, and over a 25% average drop in revenue year over year. This is one of those markets you should just stay away from. Remember the idea of not buying where they're building communities of short-term rentals? This is one of those markets. hence the supply increase. Look, I'm not against new developments and growth, but I am against cookie cutter properties not near major traffic drivers and only one major city to feed the travel there. I mean, when was the last time you heard of someone flying into Atlanta to drive to Blue Ridge? It's not a major vacation area for any of the other surrounding cities or states and has way too many rentals. Avoid it like the plague. Okay, so we're here at the #1 market you should avoid investing in 2025. And I mean, don't even think about investing here at all. It is Orlando or Kissimmee, Florida, with a 21% increase in supply in the last year alone of just Airbnbs, and combine this with a 24% in average revenue year over year. Why would you even want to look to invest there? Competition has definitely stiffened here in the last few years with insanely themed properties and higher end amenities like full-on bowling alleys and legit arcades, like the $10,000 ones, not the cheap ones on Wayfair. Investing in Orlando is not only competitive, but requires a lot of capital up front, with new hotel resorts opening this year and the major theme parks planning to expand and grow not only the parks, but on-site stays. Does it actually make sense to invest in this area when you'll only be second place in location and amenities? So avoid this area like the plague. If you agree with this list, be sure to like and subscribe to this channel. But let me know in the comments if you completely disagree or believe there are other markets you should avoid. I love hearing people's comments on this and their opinions. Be sure to check out the other video on the top markets you should actually invest in 2025. And if you need help finding a short-term rental deal that actually makes sense, then be sure to check out our handpicked selection on our site called strsforsale.com. That's it for this one. I will see you on the next video. Thanks.